They love throwing around the word coup. All right, watch.
Well, the President of the United States, he's dreaming of a coup, right?
You're cheering for an undemocratic coup.
The only thing President Trump has seemed to really be motivated to do is to keep up his efforts at this nonviolent coup,
where he believes that somehow he can undo the election and essentially have a coup where he takes over.
And that's just from last night. If you're a conservative, who actually cares about the, following the law and, like the Constitution and stuff that maintains the integrity of this country? They say you're staging a coup. Example? Remember when Trump thought, he was considering firing Robert Mueller? You would have thought that Trump was going to re-legalize plastic straws. Liberals were so mad. Coup, revolution, dictator. And then he didn't fire him, and they called him that anyway. So they're at it again. If you even raise a simple question about the election irregularities, they call you a tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist. The problem is not it's a theory. A theory is an unproven thought. But no one has answered why some counties are reporting more than 100% voter turnout, more votes than registered people, and sudden middle-of-the-night vote increases for Joe Biden. A conspiracy? Maybe, but not a theory. Not when it's well documented and still unanswered. Liberals just say that to try to get you not to talk about it. If you oppose rewriting our history to accommodate some socially woke agenda, you're a racist, sexist, istophobic, phobophobe and should be canceled like the 1619 Project. If you take any issue with the left at all, they find a way to dismiss you. Take climate change. If you don't believe in the Green New Deal, you obviously don't care about children. And you're clearly an uneducated redneck who's too stupid to comprehend the complexities of a carbon footprint. But no doubt, Al Gore will fly a private jet to an Ivy League university across the country to tell us all about it. Notice the trend? But let's look at the facts, data and stuff. Liberals hate this part because no bit of reality supports their platform at all. It's just purely emotion. If their socialist policies they seek to impose actually worked, would people be fleeing America for Cuba, Venezuela, Soviet Union? Oh, right, no, those places have all crashed and burned. America is the best option. The left, utilizing a deeply entrenched bureaucratic system that has adopted the same tactics that the U.S. military intel agencies abroad use. They're using this to destabilize our own country. These tactics are used to execute something called a color revolution. This is something very similar to that. This was used by the U.S. and Ukraine most recently. Now, before you freak out and think that I'm saying the Democratic Party is organizing a revolution in the most basic sense of the word like we did in Iraq, via force, no, stop. I'm not talking about that. They're not. Don't think for a minute that a party comprised of kids who eat Tide Pods and get gender studies degrees would actually go toe-to-toe with, me, for example. You're sadly mistaken. They're doing it in a much more administrative manner. They're attempting to destabilize the country while their lackeys in the media twist and distort reality for them, so the useful idiots believe that Donald Trump is the heart of the evil and that he is to blame for all of our problems. This goes beyond the election. This is the entire way the left-wing part of the party moves. We saw it this summer, even with the events in Kenosha, Seattle, Portland, all over the country, rioting and looting, that you're supposed to interpret this as justice. They've redefined the sense of the word and have effectively convinced, 40% of the American public that somehow your level of outrage equates to some level of justification to burn down a city. Ironically, we're seeing the same people that said Donald Trump would destroy America, in fact, literally destroying America, city by city. Listen carefully, folks. This is how governments are overthrown by their own people willingly. It doesn't take an armed revolution. What we're seeing is being used by the left is much less combative change model. The U.S. government has used this on other countries to install social change that leads to an election, which leads to leaders that are more in tune with the desires of the organizers. Folks, I did this in Iraq as a SEAL. We called it PSYOPs, psychological operations. Nothing is illegal about it, but it's being done domestically. And it's not a rapid change. It's a creeping gradualism. Think about it. For the last 40 years, liberals have dominated universities. Conservatives have largely been pushed out, avoiding nearly any diversity of thought whatsoever at most universities. This has bred the AOCs, and now they're all grown up and they're taking leadership positions. Think I'm wrong? A woman with an economics degree from Boston University elected on a platform that socialism works. You don't think the left is succeeding? That's just one part. What liberals have done are is a multifaceted, combining seemingly unrelated circumstances to create an overall disruption in an attempt to delegitimize and create a lack of faith in a current leader or system, like we have now. Sound familiar? I'll get to this in a minute, but Donald Trump is not the target. He's just the first person who's been willing to throw a big enough hand grenade at this attempt in the culture shift. He has exposed it, and therefore he must be destroyed. And if someone like him could ever possibly be elected, then the first item to make people lose trust in is the electoral process. And according to Morning Consult, prior to the election, 66% of GOP voters said they had at least some trust in the U.S. electoral system. In the latest poll, that dropped to 30%. Democratic trust, meanwhile, jumped from 63 to 80%. Imagine that. You're not alone at home, folks, if you're questioning this election. Let's not forget that just a mere matter of months ago, the left was insisting that this would be a contested election. Watch.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win.
Why is she yelling? Now, of course, now that their guy appears to have won, it's suddenly there was no possible way an election could be rigged. It was totally above board, and Donald Trump needs to concede or else he's threatening democracy. Hell, Stacey Abrams still has not conceded. They're trying to make you think that you're crazy. They're trying to make everyone around you think you're crazy. And if you speak up, you're the threat. They try to keep you in order by threatening violence. And if you stand your ground, you're the extremist. With the help of the media, the left basically said anything but a Biden win will create mass chaos. They were setting it up. This distrust in the electoral process lends to even level-headed folks to question the credibility of a declared winner, which lends understanding to the next phase of this type of coup. Massive mobilized protests, well-funded, well-organized, strategic locations under elected officials that are legitimizing this, that have been funded and supported by the same machines supporting the riots, which they're hiding behind the notion of peaceful protest, committing acts of civil and sometimes even criminal disobedience. Don't believe me? You don't think the media is in on this? Remember this? CNN reporting, standing in front of a burning building. Look at the headline. Mostly peaceful protest. You see why I think CNN is a joke? We saw this happen over and over again last year. When the cops arrest people, they're demonizing the cops, is escalating the situation. Crazy, right? And most of you sitting at home, what planet am I living on? Now, some of you probably are sitting there, oh, this is crazy. Come on, Carl, this can't be real. Yeah, it is. Who's organizing this? This is where it gets really good. You know, Tucker Carlson recently covered a dude, Norm Eisen. He's the author of a book called The Democracy Playbook. Now, if a Republican wrote a book like this or did what this guy is doing, he would likely be convicted of sedition by the media. His book details exactly what process he is doing. I'm not making this up. Most of this is from his book. This guy is a legal assassin. If you can believe it or not, former Obama ethics czar. His legal opinion and efforts are at the center of nearly every attempt, every legal attempt at least, to sue, impeach, delegitimize this president. He was behind almost 200 lawsuits against the Trump administration. He authored 10 articles of impeachment, and this was before the president's call with Ukraine even happened. You know, the original reason they said was for the impeachment? Then he was the special counsel to the Democrats for the impeachment process. You can't make this stuff up. Leading up to the election, he was using legal warfare to sue, instill roadblocks, and scrutinize the 2020 electoral process even before it began. They saw this coming. Democrats did everything they could to make sure that if Donald Trump won, then it would not be considered legitimate. Then they expected you to say, oh, okay, I guess the American people really did want drooling Joe Biden. Folks, I'm not in some tinfoil hat guy. This is not a theory. This is what's happening. This is in the guy's own book. I gave you examples. Prove me wrong.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.